Welcome to Venture Step Podcast, where we discuss entrepreneurship, industry trends, and the occasional book review. Have you ever felt like you don't have enough time? I'm sure we've all been there, splitting life between kids, family, partner, your girlfriend, boyfriend, hobbies, and friends, and just having a social life in general, and things that you're trying to do and working on yourself, like reading, exercising, or chasing that next goal. All those things have a cost, and the cost is you could do anything in life as long as you're willing to accept that you're not going to be the best at all things. You could pick a couple that you could really be good at, and so you could be a really good parent and a really good work life, but your social life might have it hampering on it. Or you could do vice versa. You could do, really good family and social life, but your work life might not be as good as it is with other people that are more focused. So obviously, people who specialize in certain areas in school are good at those areas. And so same thing applies in life. But then how do you manage all those aspects of your life? And that's something that I have been pondering the last couple of weeks. And I figured I would share my productivity stack, what I'm doing. And I also wanted to take things to the next level because I was struggling in certain areas, especially at work. And so I did a lot of research on project management tools and personal task management tools, note-taking tools. And so I'm going to discuss all those tools and the tools that I picked to help manage my time and discuss the little caveats. But I'm really just going to be giving personal anecdotes, my experience of using the app and why I do what I'm doing, and just different methodologies. I'm definitely not an expert in these methodologies because people write books about them. People, they have their PhD and they write the book and they create these methodologies or whatever. And they're not anything crazy. It's pretty mainstream. But I would just like to discuss my perspective, and that might help you out. So before we dive in, I'm your host, Dalton Anderson. I've got a bit of a mix of background in programming, insurance. Offline, you can find me running, building my side business, or lost in a good book. You can listen to the podcast in video and audio format. If that's your thing, you can find it on YouTube. If audio is your preference, you can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, of course, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcasts. So as discussed, today we're going to talk about time management, and I'm going to break down my to-do list app. And then I'm going to talk about the task management or time management framework that I utilize and my personal approach. And I'll give some I'll give some small snippet summaries of the methods or techniques that are used, just in case you're not familiar. But I won't be going with a robust summary or something like that. You'll get way better information online. You could talk about one methodology for a long time, over an hour or something like that, if you really wanted to get down and dirty with it. And then we're going to talk about the project management apps that I tried and the one that I chose and why. And the apps that, obviously didn't make the cut. So I'm not going to talk about every app that I tried in the first two segments, but I'll go in a little bit more detail on the other apps that I tried at the bottom. And I'll keep it conversational. Okay. So task management. Task management is something that people struggle with, I feel like. Like, how do you manage where you are going? How do you manage one-off tasks? How do you understand where those tasks are coming from? Which areas of your life are those tasks supposed to be located? And just in general, having something where it's really easy when someone's talking to you at work or someone's talking to you at a coffee shop, just open up the app and assign something to yourself, like really quick. That's what I was looking for. There's many offerings on the market, but I really narrowed it down to two. It is the Todoist, which is, it's like to do, and then ist, like IST, all one word. And then it's TickTick. Those are the two that I really narrowed down to. Todoist and TickTick are like the two biggest task management apps there are. Todoist has been around longer, I think 20 years, and has a clearer roadmap of where it's going. In my opinion, I like the UI more than TickTick. TickTick has really launched a lot of features and is rather new to the market compared to Todoist, because Todoist is like one of the oldest. And TickTick has some, interesting features that forced Todoist to adapt. And Todoist had to adapt many of the features, like adapt or die, where TickTick was forcing Todoist to adopt many features that they didn't have. And so I think that's great. I love when there's this two company competition where two companies are pushing each other. A good example would be Apple and Google in the hardware, or I guess not as much as Google. I would say Apple and Samsung in the hardware business, where Samsung makes a device that's pretty good, Apple makes a device, and they kind of just push back and forth, and they innovate, and it makes us happy because if you're an Apple fan, Apple's getting pushed by Samsung, so you're getting better products. Samsung's getting pushed by Apple, so Samsung fans are getting better products. So overall, the competition is perfect if you want to manage your tasks, because Todoist is getting pushed by TickTick, and now Todoist is caught up, and now they're pushing each other. But basically, Todoist is rather new. Not Todoist. TickTick is rather new, and so they launched many features like very fast, and I would say, aren't as stable. Like the features are there, but they're not perfect. Like they're always missing something. They never seemed like fully fledged features. Whereas Todoist, when Todoist comes out with something, it's pretty top notch in its class. And I felt like Todoist over time, they have stabilized their features and their offering, but they launch features, like they're constantly shipping new things, which is great. But the caveat of that is like they're iterating so fast that the features that they shipped 2 months ago might not be fully baked. And then over time, you just get a whole bunch of like half-baked things where it's not complete and it's missing things, or it might be a little buggy, or whatever the issue is, or there's this weird UI thing and it's not as clean. Whereas Todoist is a little bit slower moving, and the features that they do launch are very polished, I would say. So that's one of my key gripes is like, I think that if you're always looking for those new features and be able to provide feedback and have those features implemented into the app, which TickTick is known to do, then that's probably your choice. But if you want a clean, simple UI with potentially less features than your competitor, but those features are very polished, and you have a uniformed look across apps of different platforms. Like my Todoist app on my Android phone, my Google Pixel phone, is very clean, beautiful. The Todoist app on my Mac, my MacBook Pro, clean. It's almost the exact same UI and layout. The Todoist app on the Windows, pretty much the same exact thing. Like you can't really tell. Like if I look at Mac and if I look at Windows, functionality, UI, everything, animations, all the same. If I go on the website, same thing. TickTick, it seems like their apps, like their Mac app and their Windows app look different. Their Android app versus their Apple app looks different. And so you don't have this uniformed UI for all these different apps. And it's kind of confusing why they're all different. I would appreciate if they were the same. But as far as features go, I mean, they're pretty much identical now. They both allow you to use task management formats, like frameworks, like the Eisenhower Matrix or getting things done or eat the frog or time blocking. Like it allows you to do all those things with a template, and you can manage your schedule. Your task can become events on your calendar to enable time blocking. It pretty much does the same thing. And if not, you can get an integration. They allow integrations and plugins where if maybe they have a service that you want or don't have a service that you want, but you want to keep using Todoist or TickTick, then you can, have this plugin app. Like if you wanted better time blocking features, you could use Samsama, and Samsama would allow very advanced time blocking and scheduling of your time, but it comes with its own separate subscription. And both of these apps, I didn't say I didn't think it was that important because it's not that much money in the first place, but both of them are free. And if you want premium, it's like $5 or $4 a month or something if you do it annually. So it's fairly cheap. I mean, people spend more than that a week on coffee every, I know people that get Starbucks 4 times a week. I mean, that's a lot more than $4 a month. So I don't think many people are concerned about $4 a month. So that's why I didn't mention the price. But I would say as feature wise, they're pretty much identical. But as said, TickTick seems to launch things faster than Todoist. They both have recurring tasks. You can have your tasks tied to geolocations. Like if you get to work, you could have like tasks being triggered, like check your email, brew coffee, whatever. You can have a hierarchical approach to your tasks. You can have projects, and you have sub projects, and then you have tasks within the project or sections. Both of them have task comments and notes. TickTick uses notes, which I think is better approach than Todoist's comments. But overall, they're pretty much, once again, identical. It's more of a preference. I prefer Todoist's UI and simplicity. And I like that since I have a desktop PC, which is Windows, I have a portable laptop, which is Mac. Then I have a work computer that's Windows, and then my phone is Android. So I'm on all sorts of different operating systems. So I like that it's uniform. Like I really appreciate the simplicity and the beauty of their applications. So that was why I chose Todoist over TickTick. Like I'm really a UI guy. Like you're going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it and some of these other apps at later in the episode, where I was just like, man, this UI is brutal. And I have a list of like 5 different apps I'm going to try out. And if I open it up and the UI is just horrendous, I'm like, all right, I'll give it a try, but it seems like it's a no. It seems like a no. It seems like they're just not putting a lot of thought into their product. And that's how I feel. Like if the UI isn't elegant and free flowing and just like beautiful, I feel like they're just not putting in the thought into their product. Like they're just not being thoughtful about the product they're releasing. And maybe for certain things, like the UI doesn't matter. Like I guess Amazon's a company that a lot of people, or a website that I use that the UI sucks. But I mean, where else am I going to get same day shipping and next day shipping consistently? So I don't know. Walmart's UI, I think is better, but I don't have Walmart Plus, and I use my family's Amazon Prime because I'm cheap like that. Shout out to my mom. Okay, so task management framework. And I think that people get a lot of, let me rephrase that. Task management framework, I think people get caught up with using their framework. Like, oh, I did my research. This is the framework for me, and this is how I do things. I don't necessarily like that approach. I think you should be a little bit more free flowing on the things that you're doing and how you're doing them. So I don't feel like one methodology or technique ticks all the boxes. Like they're all good at one or two things. And they kind of build off of each other. But a lot of times I think it's best to combine them in certain circumstances. But I'm just going to talk about like how I manage my time with these frameworks. And then I'll show you afterwards the Todoist app. I'll share what I did. I basically manage my tasks by combining two different techniques. I think it's like the getting things done and the founder's systematic template, and then one other template combined all into one. And that's how I manage my tasks. And I think that's pretty good. And I feel like I'm on top of my stuff. And I feel like I'm getting a lot more things, I would say a lot more items done and completed off my chest, my back, and my shoulders. Feel a lot lighter. And also it allows me to really understand what's going on in my day because my calendars are all integrated. So I have my work calendars integrated and my Google calendars integrated. And then my tasks that I'm putting on there with durations are integrated. So I can see everything all in one place. So I know what's going on throughout the day. It's just great. But I'll go over that after I talk about how I like to go about completing things, and if I'm struggling, like what do I do? So for workouts, I like to use Eat the Frog framework. So Eat the Frog is basically like in a really one-liner thing is like you have these tasks that you're really dragging on, right? So say, I don't know, things that you don't want to do. Like maybe lawn work, like mow the grass and it's summertime and it's just hot. You don't want to do it. Or put together your travel itinerary that you know it's going to be super time consuming and you would rather watch Netflix. So instead of saving it for last or doing it in the middle, Eat the Frog basically is you do the thing that you don't want to do first. You get it out of the way. And so I like to do that with really difficult tasks. Sorry, I'm still a bit sick. Sorry, I had a cough. I like to use Eat the Frog for tasks that I'm dreading. Like a good example is that when I have a workout that I know is going to be super difficult, like sprint work or a long run with when my legs are sore or something like that, I try to do that first thing in the morning. If I don't get it done, and I think that overall the approach is great for exercising because you can make all sorts of excuses. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I'm working late tonight and then I still have to get my food and I don't have to clean the dishes afterwards or I have to take all the trash. You can make all sorts of excuses. But if you eat the frog for your workout right in the morning, there it is. It's done. It's done. You don't have to worry about it. Nothing comes up. And so I think for working out, I like to use Eat the Frog and I just do it right away. And for other tasks like related to work, things that I have to do related to like reporting or reviewing, financial documents that is going to be very time consuming. I try to do that right away. It might not be the most efficient way to do it because if you think about how your sleep schedule is, if you're an early bird or a night owl, your brain activity is better at certain task segmentation throughout the day. So if you're an early bird like myself, it's better. I mean, this is a stereotype, like this of stereotyping early birds, but from the research, and who knows if any of this stuff is legitimate. I mean, this is what they tell us. Who knows? But you're supposed to really do analytical tasks like first thing in the morning. That's when you're highest energy. And then at the middle of the day, you're supposed to do like collaborative work. And then at the end of your day, you're supposed to do administrative work. So you're doing like emails or responding to people via Teams or just setting up your tasks for the next day, planning for your next day, just admin work that's low power, low effort. You just got to get it done. You want to do your high power stuff, brain requirement stuff in the morning when you're sharp. And for night owls, it's the other way around where you're supposed to do admin stuff when you're tired, your brain's not on all the way. Do the admin stuff, do collaborative stuff in the afternoon. And then you're supposed to do these analytical tasks or deep work in the evening. Okay. So let's transition back over to my task management or time management framework. So for resource allocation for project planning, I use the Eisenhower Matrix. So I have many projects and I decide which ones we need to work on. So I have a whole list of them, maybe like 20. And then I kind of just slot them in like where I think that they should land. Okay, I think this is urgent or not urgent, or I should delegate this or whatever. And so it makes it very clear on like what should be done or not done. What needs to get done by me or it can get it done by someone else. What is something that's important but we're not responsible for, and just kind of prioritizing like who does what and what do I do and what do we not work on, or what's important but can't be worked on now. What's urgent, but what's critical but not urgent, or there's just a whole bunch of different ways of going about it. Okay, so tasks that I find that I'm dragging on, which is just different things like those financial reviewing of the documents where I have to like cross-reference other things, and it's just time consuming. I wouldn't say I'm dragging on it all the time, but there's times where things come up and I get distracted with other things that come up at work. And then before you know it, I haven't worked on this, review, and I need to get the review out and sign off on it. So I like to do for these things, like if I'm dragging on something, and this is the only example I can think of off the top of my head, but I like to use Eat the Frog, which is like you do it first then. And then I use the Pomodoro Technique. The Pomodoro Technique is you set a time for yourself, and it really depends on like what you're doing and how comfortable you are sitting still for a long time working on one task. But basically you set a timer and say it's 25 minutes. And so you would do 25 minutes straight. Your phone, a lot of times there's an app that you can download on your phone where it locks your phone. And so you can't really use your phone. It just has a timer going and it will go off, and you could use your phone for a couple minutes and then it's locked again. And so you do 25 minutes on hard work. You're completely locked in, focused on your task. And then after 25 minutes, the timer goes off. You have a 2-minute break or something like that, 3-minute break. Do your thing, get water, whatever, go on your phone, just take a break, relax, walk around, and then come back. You do another 25 minutes. And then you keep repeating that for like 4 sets. And then after that, you get a longer break, maybe 20 minutes, 15 minutes. And then you keep repeating that task until it's completed. That's a good way to get things done. I do longer segments. Like I would do like 45 minutes and then 3-minute break. I think that's better. 25 minutes is a bit short in my opinion, but everyone's got their own little flow. I mean, some people might be like, oh, well, after 30 minutes, you're really not getting that much work done and you're not as focused. And so it's more optimal to do 25 minutes or 30 minutes. All I'll say to that is think about yourself and how you work and what works for you instead of following everything that the internet says is what I would say. Is like, I would try it out, see how it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, increase the time, decrease the time, do whatever you want. I mean, these frameworks are more like ideas on how to manage your time, but it's not a set rule. So there's no set rules. You could do whatever you want. Okay. So for tasks, to complete tasks that require deep work, and deep work is like this analytical stuff that I'm talking about, or like coding or creating or research, those require deep work. Those tasks require deep work. And the issue with that is if people are putting meetings on your calendar, or if you're getting called in to do ad hoc calls with different people to groups and you're needed for whatever reason, or your team needs you, or someone else on someone else's team needs you, or there's something comes up and you're needed, people throw meetings on your calendar, and it's just like this whole switching costs of like, okay, you go to one meeting to another meeting, and then you have, say, a 2-hour block that's supposed to be free. So you're like, I'll get my work done. And then after that, someone gives you a call, and that call is 45 minutes. And then and then 10 minutes later, someone else calls you. And then before you know it, you only had like 45 minutes of time to work on what you're supposed to. But of those 45 minutes, they're broken up in like 15-minute slots. And so you don't really get much work done in those 15 minutes because like you're trying to get water, you're trying to get food, you're trying to figure out what you need to do for these other tasks that you just got randomly pulled into. You're documenting what you talked about. And at the end of the day, you didn't get much work done. And that was what was happening to me recently. I would say maybe last month, 3 weeks. And that's where I really was diving deep into trying to figure out a better way to manage my time. And so I had already utilized those other frameworks or techniques before, but I was pretty new to time blocking, and it's a new issue as I am in an elevated position where I'm responsible for many areas, and I'm required to give input and advice on different things, which is a good problem to have. But at the same time, I was missing out on contributing individually on my projects that I needed to complete. And the solution might be for other people, oh, well, I'll just work late consistently. But as said earlier, we have all these different areas in our life that we're trying to compete in. I'm not competing with other people, but what I mean is like you want to compete and you want to be there and you want to be active. And to do that, you need time. And time is definitely a finite resource. And at the moment, we can't get more time. So that's not a solution. It work more. I already work enough. So I don't want to do that. And that was something I was doing where I was consistently working later than I normally do to contribute on my projects. But the issue there is then I start lacking in my workouts, or then I start lacking in my social life. And then those things, like those balances, make it so you can contribute at a more meaningful contribution when you're recharged or you refresh or you have different perspective and you are interacting with different people to get different ideas and different approaches on life and things and your work. And so those outside interactions fold into your work. And if you're not having those outside interactions, then you don't contribute as much. It's simple as that. So I started to do time blocking, and I'm pretty new to time blocking. So I've done it for 2 weeks, a week and a half, I would say week and a half. Yeah, week and a half. So I did it for a week and a half, and that was one of the main reasons why I was looking at Todoist and TickTick, was because you can integrate your Google Calendar into the app, and then if you sync your Google Calendar with your Outlook calendar or your Google Calendar with work, then all you have to do is do a subscribe. You subscribe to the calendar, and so if you go in the Outlook app and you go to old view, you go to your settings, you go to calendar, and then you go to like share. There's a thing for like shared calendar, and then you do by URL, copy the URL, go to your Google Calendar, go to your settings, and go to calendars. And then there should be something like, say, like subscribe to calendar. And then you say subscribe by URL. You copy and paste that URL, and then you're good to go. And they're both integrated. So it's what's called a one-way sync. And so those calendars are one-way sync. So you can't make any changes on your work calendar, on your Google Calendar, and your your work calendar can't make any changes to your Google Calendar. They don't necessarily know what events are on there. I would say like, well, like you could see on your Outlook when you're at work. My work uses Outlook. So your Microsoft calendar, you can see all your events and what they are, and you can click on them, whatever. You just can't do any edits. Like it's read only basically. But people that are scheduling meetings and trying to schedule meetings over events or time blocks that you created to manage your day, those events that aren't work events, they can't see them. So they know that you're busy and you're not available, but they don't know like what you're doing, which I guess is good or bad. I don't know how you feel about it. I don't really care that much as long as I can get some deep work in there. And I'm not trying to block out my whole day and say, oh, well, I'm only meeting 30 minutes a day because I need to be in these meetings and contribute and make sure that we're going in the right direction for the product. But if I can get my meetings down to 3 to 4 hours a day, and that would give me, well, let's just call it 3. It was just 3 hours a day. That would give me enough time to individually contribute on my projects and make sure that I'm available to people. And yeah, I mean, as long as I can get done the stuff that I can get done, I think I could get all that stuff done like 3 hours. If I got 3 hours of deep work a day, that would be huge. But there's just some weeks where I wasn't getting any deep work done. So I was like, I had to figure something out, because a lot of my value that I contribute is, one, leading the direction of like where we're going with IT and systems, but also I'm building systems, I'm building programs, I'm building automations, I'm doing all this coding, and that's deep work. And if I'm constantly going in and out of meetings, I'm not getting any of that stuff done. So that's when time blocking came about. And I will say that it works. Like it does work, and it's pretty decent, I would say, where you get a lot of deep work done, and it's I think very beneficial. A lot of like founders or CEOs use time blocking, and that's maybe where you've seen it before. There's time blocking, and then there is, what is it? There's time blocking, and then there is one other one. And I think people get them confused. Because I got confused about time blocking versus, if I can spell block, geez, it's asking me to sign in. That's annoying. Hold on one moment. Time blocking versus time boxing. Yeah, there it is. I know they're supposed to start with a B, but time boxing is like doing an assigned task for a certain amount of time. So like, say that a task might be 8 hours, but instead of working on that task for 8 hours, you're like, okay, I'll work on it for an hour and a half today, and then after that hour and a half, I'm going to work on something else. And so time boxing is good when you have many competing tasks and you're prone to going down rabbit holes. So where, okay, like, and the time boxing thing is good for me, because when I was trying to do this podcast episode, I was researching like just different stuff just before my episode, just so I can make sure I'm like well informed to talk about this. And I got like really caught up on like researching like different note apps, and I was trying them out, and the ones I hadn't tried, I was like signing up and making the accounts, like downloading the apps, and like before I know, I dropped like an hour and a half on just nonsense that I wasn't going to talk about in the episode. Like it wasn't even related. Like I was just curious, and I was looking at the time, and I was like, what are you doing here? Let's get out of here and let's go do the episode, like what we're supposed to be doing. Okay, so that's time blocking. And then for long-term initiatives, I use day theming, which is another thing that a lot of like CEOs and founders use, especially if they're juggling like many companies. I think Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk deploy day theming, but it's a little different for them because their day is like themed by like which company they're working on. But I know that there are founders that will theme their days, saying like, okay, like on Mondays or Tuesdays, I'm working on product. On Wednesdays and Thursdays, I'm working on system issues. And then Fridays, I'm working on like long-term initiatives. And so your whole day, that's all you're doing. And so your meetings are related to that day, and the tasks that you're doing are related to that day. And so that's like your sole focus. I wouldn't say like your meetings necessarily need to be related to that, but if you're like a big CEO or founder, like I'm pretty sure that they would have this say like, okay, if it's not related to this on this day, I'm not doing it. Because I know when Jack Dorsey or something like that, or Elon is doing their day theming and they're working on SpaceX on Wednesday. If something huge comes up with Tesla on Wednesday, he'll be available, but that's not really his prime focus. And so he's working on SpaceX. And then Thursday, he might work on Tesla. And then Friday, he might work on like Boring Company or something. That's day theming. So I use day theming for like long-term initiatives where, maybe Monday through Thursday, I do my tasks and my projects that I'm working on. But then what about these like big long-term initiatives that are not necessarily not important, but they are far away? And so I don't necessarily need to work on it full time, but I need to keep chipping away at it. And so I'll assign some time on like a Friday or something, and I'll work on something that is a long-term initiative to get that put together, but not necessarily doing a full focus fledged switch and devoting a lot of resources to it. So that's how I manage my time. One thing I did forget to say is if you're using the Eisenhower Matrix, make sure that your stuff that you're creating is private and people can't see it, especially when you're at a company and you're using a product management software or tool. Because I remember at a previous company, I was using Asana and I was using the Eisenhower Matrix for all these tasks that were coming into me and projects. I didn't know it at the time, but I found out later on, obviously, that the tasks that I was creating were visible to other people. And so they could see what I was doing and they could see that I was marking their tasks like not important, not urgent, or like thought of as urgent, but definitely not important, like all this stuff. And luckily no one found out, or maybe they found out, but they didn't say anything, which might have caused a rift potentially. No one said anything about it, but I definitely could have been funny looking back. Definitely not funny in that moment. But yeah, like if you're using the Eisenhower Matrix and you're telling people their tasks are important, make sure that they can't see it. Or if you're telling them that it's not important, like make sure you explain like why it's not important. Elsewise, people are going to be upset and it just doesn't look good. Luckily, I didn't have to have that conversation, but if it's public, explain it. If it's not public, that's good too. That removes a lot of the question that you might get or might not get. I think if you didn't get questions, that's worse than if you did get questions. Just an FYI, because that's something I dealt with. So your Asana tasks are public unless I think if you're on like a company license, like your stuff's public, like they could see it, like your boss could see it, or people on your team can see it. I think you can set your stuff to private, but that's just not how we were set up at our previous company. Okay, so what I do for Todoist, and I'll share my screen here. Let's see. Todoist, I use getting things done, the systematic approach, and make this full screen. And I use what is called areas to help manage my workload, and keeping things segmented, because I have VentureStep, then I have Fibition, and then after that, I've got my work, and then I've got my personal life and social life and all sorts of things. So if I don't have a way to segment these things, then I'll have a tough time. Todoist. Let's see, share. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen right here. So this is my Todoist. And so one of my things on my today was quick thoughts for the podcast. And so I just put in some things about the podcast that I want to talk about. And then I sent it up to the cloud. Obviously, I did it on my phone, typed it up in bed after my nap when I got home from traveling with Labor Day weekend. And so I typed it up on my phone. It syncs to my website, not my website, but to the Todoist app website or app, whatever. Web app. It could be a web app, or you could use the app. It doesn't really matter. Semantics at this point. But so I made this little task. I'm gonna complete it because it's done. I'm talking about the podcast right now. And so one thing that's that's kind of cool is you could see the breakdown of my day. And so if you look at the calendar, you can see it's Labor Day. I've got to study Spanish Duolingo. I checked my email. I've done that already. And these other things are tomorrow. I said Spanish Duolingo because I have to do that every day. Check my email. I check that every day. But I have a meeting. I have a one-on-one meeting tomorrow morning, and then I've got some focus time scheduled for later in the afternoon. At the end of the day, I'm going to review and plan for the next day. I've got a developer session later in that, like late in the workday. But that's my day for tomorrow. And so then when I start adding tasks in here, when I go to my work, I think I have something that's not very organized, but I have this brain dump. So I just put in my stuff, like whatever I'm thinking about, like just one-off things. And at that point, I will assign them out where I need to put stuff. And what I would do is I would put it, if I needed to put it in a certain project. I haven't made separate projects yet for this. I'm still trying out how I want to do it. I don't want to make it too complex to where the complexity ruins the approach of having it segmented. So right now I'm just having these three. This is something that the system made when I took from the template. So I didn't make this inspiration section. Routines is not really part of it, but I do have under my work, I do have like other sections. So I have culture, which is things I want to share when I want to share with the team. So little articles or little stories that I think are valuable to share with the team to help build culture and knowledge. Review, things that I need to review. So if I need to review documents or I need to review some emails that I wasn't able to get to, I'll throw it into review and then I'll deal with it later. Meetings is like maybe some meeting takeaways / like some meeting notes. And after that, I will create a to-do list, and then I'll get rid of this task. Personal, I'm more willing to click into these. So personal, I have health and social. I have trips. So I think I have some stuff in here. I have like some recommendations. And so I need to figure out if I want to rent a car or take a helicopter for the Grand Canyon when I go to Las Vegas. And it was recommended that I eat at the Wynn Hotel for their buffet. My friend Sarah recommended it. Japan, figure out if I want to do the Mount Fuji hike, the 1 day or the 2 day. And so basically for the Mount Fuji hike, I need to figure out if I'm going to stay on the mountain at night. And so I need a mountain lodge. And to get that, you can't order online. You have to call. And I think you need a Japanese phone number. And you need to be able to, I don't think it's a requirement to speak Japanese, but it definitely makes it a lot easier. So I made my friend Ryan have his friend call to see if she can book it for us, and we just pay her maybe. That would make things a lot easier. And especially because I'm on a different time zone and it's 13-hour difference. So that would help. So we'll see how that turns out. But then I have stuff for Korea. I haven't put stuff on there, but there's just little things I need to take care of, like restaurants or things that were recommended that I need to write up in the itinerary. Learning, I have the study for Duolingo. A friend recommended the Money Guys podcast. What I do need to do for this is I need to start putting due dates. So if someone recommends something to me and I really want to watch this, like this was a Money Guys podcast that was recommended by my friend Carter. I need to put a due date on this. And so it's due at a certain time. Like let's just call it, it's Monday right now. Let's do 2 weeks from now. So now it's got a due date. So I would really prefer if everything I put in here had a due date to where I am not just putting stuff on here that's not actionable. So I want to make sure like the things I'm putting in here are actionable. And if I don't take action, there is a due date that I have to do it. And so it will come up on my to do today. And so before you know it, you'll have so much stuff that you won't remember everything, but it will just come up on your to do for today. and then you just rip through your to-dos, and then you get through to the last part, and you get this nice animation of like, enjoy your day, Dalton. You've completed your daily goal. My daily goal is 5 tasks, and you'll get the to-do is to 0. I like that. I try to keep my inbox to 0, so I got no emails in my inbox, and I try to keep my tasks to 0. That's the goal, and I like to end every day with nothing in my inbox, and I want to have 0 tasks. The dates to remember, I have where I'll add critical dates, like I have a wedding or just different things, like maybe a birthday. And then this is like things I want to share with people. Venture Step, I have its own little thing where I'm going to, have things I need to work on, and then vice versa for Vibition. But those are kind of my projects and how I have things set up. So each of these is a project in itself. So my work is a project, and then within that project, there's these sub projects that are within this what I would call as an area. So my area is work, and then underneath work, I have like my work, like kind of dashboard like thing where I put a lot of my stuff. And then I have these like sub projects they're kind of like not related to work, but they're related like culture. Like it's not really a big deal if I miss out sharing an article that I wanted to share with the team. It's not huge. Nothing's bad's going to happen. And so I have it off to the side where it doesn't clutter. Same thing with personal. I have a personal piece, and then I have these other like side areas, like a sub area within an area that I think is big enough on its own. It should have its own little area where I could look at it and see it. And that's kind of how I'm going about it. So I have like basically a mixture of getting things done with areas with time blocking. So if I go to work, or if I go to today, I don't have anything to do, but let's go to today. And then I go to view. So this is the list view, but you could do board view, which I don't have anything. So it's not very useful, but you can also go to the calendar view. And so you can see everything that's going on. And I'm showing everyone my calendar for some reason on the internet. I don't know why I'm doing that, but whatever. Nothing bad's on here. And so it looks like I have a lunch tomorrow, which is huge. And I have a block right here, and then I have my focus time. So at least get some time, but I think I want to make this 3 hours. So I will, let's say here, I'll just put this in here. So say increase focus time to 3 hours. And let's add that. And then once it's added, it really needs to be before my focus time starts. So just put it right here. I'll just drag it on my calendar. And so this will pop up on and I need to change this tomorrow. Let's do this for tomorrow. I'm looking at today, but oh yeah, because today's a holiday. I'm like tripping out. But in this example, we would have this task, and when I opened up my calendar tomorrow, I would see, okay, I wanted to increase my focus time. Or if I wanted to look at my list, I would say, oh, I need to increase my focus time, and I'll go and edit it on the calendar app on my work. Eventually, this is going to be two-way sync with your work, and then two-way sync with your Google Calendar. I don't know how companies are going to feel about having two-way sync, and it might be a security issue and they won't allow it, but I think it'd be pretty cool if they would. But having two-way sync for Google Calendar makes sense. Right now, it's two-way sync-ish. Like there's an integration for two-way sync, and then they're redoing their integration so that it has less features, but it's going to be more robust in the future and more stable. So they're having the old integration is two-way sync. The new integration is one-way sync, but you can have, if you want two-way sync, you can do that. But if you do one-way sync, you have to use the new integration and then sync your calendar, subscribe your calendar, like via Google Calendar, you subscribe to your Todoist calendar, And then all those things would pop up with events as long as they have a duration. And then it pops up on your calendar. So if I were to go to my Google Calendar, it would show my event that I created. But I don't need to do that. I think you trust me. It shows up right here. And here you can see it. So if I expand it. But anyways, so that's how I have my I guess workflow for my task management set up. And you can share these with people. You can have a shared list. You could get more advanced. I'm keeping it simple, trying to keep it simple and manageable. And then if you wanted to add something, there's a whole bunch of templates. And this is the template I was talking about. If it loads, come on. If it takes like 10 more seconds, I'm just gonna let it go. All right. You don't get to see the templates, but they've got a lot of cool templates. I'm gonna stop sharing and then I'm gonna get reset up. Okay. So that was my Todoist setup. I've got like a mirage of different templates that I liked. And after doing some research and some trial and error, that's what works for me for right now. And it's an ongoing thing where it's constantly changing. So this is what's best approach for me now, but maybe a year from now, I have something different. But with these apps like Todoist or TickTick, you have a one-stop shop with being a best in the class, like to-do list app. One of the biggest issues with these other apps, like I would say Notion, or I think Notion's like a big one where it's trying to become like an all-in-one app, or Evernote. Like originally these things were notes apps, and now they're trying to become like an all-in-one app. I think like Notion has project management, task management, note taking, collaborative notes, collaborative projects, a collaborative wiki pages, like meetings, calendar, and it's becoming like a whole suite of products, which isn't a big deal, but it's just a lot of junk and extra stuff that you don't need. Where Todoist and TickTick, it does tasks, and it does tasks very well. And I think that's something you should look for. Like you should look for a task app that is phenomenal at tasks and isn't going to go away. And you can have a long-term approach to it. So it's probably going to take you like 10 months, 6 months to really get settled into the app and really get a process put together. If you're very systematic, I don't know how systematic you are. Maybe just throw stuff together. But I think it takes some time to really get settled into this app, and you want to make sure that you make the right decision because it's going to cost a lot of time to switch over to a new app. A lot of times you can't port over your previous tasks. I know TickTick does task importing, so you could import your tasks, but there's formatting issues, there's other issues, so it just causes a rift for sure. Okay, so the last segment is, or I have 2 more segments, but the next one is project management. So I've tried quite a few project management platforms or /software, and I think out of all of them, I would I would sign up and use ClickUp. I said click because I was thinking about the name. ClickUp is an app that is collaborative and free for a while, where I think you can collaborate with quite a few people. And the only thing that free is limited on is like its storage, which you don't really need like that much storage. So I would think about it as it's free for that. Their notion is free forever. Like they have a freemium model, and a lot of these platforms do. Like TickTick has a freemium model. Todoist is a freemium model. ClickUp is a freemium model where it's free. They get you sucked in, and they know since you're so integrated, you're not going to switch. And then you slowly have too much stuff on there, and you don't have enough storage, and then you have to upgrade. That's basically it. But I think the standout with ClickUp is they give you all the features, like pretty much every feature that you need. I think the only limitation is you can only have one form at a time. And then that's it. Like, you could have unlimited wikis. You could have wikis per project. You have sub projects. You could have teams. You have mini teams. I think you have up to 5 teams. And that would mean that if you had a whole department, or each department could be a team. So if you're managing 5 different departments, each department could have a team, unlimited projects, unlimited folders. And why I'm talking about this stuff, I mean, it makes a little more sense if we back up for a second. So what I really appreciate about ClickUp is they have a hierarchical approach to their platform. So you have a space, which is like your department or your team, whatever. You have a space, and then underneath a space, you have a folder, and then underneath a folder, you have projects. And within those projects, you could have within those folders, you could have a subfolder that could have projects in them, or you just have projects and sub projects. And on the free plan, you can have all of that, obviously, for free. The only limitation is you can only have one form, like an intake form, where it has basically like a Microsoft form or Google form, where you have questions, it intakes, and then the form outputs inputted onto a project, and you can manage your stuff like bug intake or whatever, feature enhancements, something like that. And you can only have one form, which is fine. I mean, for free, you have workflow creation, you have collaborative documents on the wiki, you've got project notes, you can design things that you could design like in Visio on there. It's very powerful and free, and it's collaborative, and that's what we're using as the product team. The one that I'm helping manage. I'm the product manager. That's what we decided. We tried many different ones, and I've used Monday for a year. And I wouldn't have switched because it's a pain to switch, but the company that I work for just went separate ways, like a different approach. Like they felt like they didn't need Monday anymore, which I think is fair because Monday isn't that good. There's Monday. I've had Asana for a year at a previous company. I have used Wrinkle. I've used quite a few. And hands down, the best pricing and the features and the UI and just the overall flow and approach, I think ClickUp wins. After that, I would probably put Asana or Wrinkle. And then last, I'd put Monday. Monday's rough. Like, out of any of these, please do not choose Monday, because a lot of these platforms, they're all offering pretty much similar things. Like, they have different focus points. I don't know what Monday's focus point is. Like, they're trying to be like a CRM when that's not really what they're built for. Like, they're more of a project management, and they're trying to transition to be like a CRM. Wrinkle, it's pretty similar to ClickUp. I feel like they're pretty head-to-head competitors. And then Asana is more of like emphasis on collaboration and commenting, and you have a task inbox with your comments and things that were updated, and you kind of have a daily flow. But they all pretty much have reporting mechanisms for their projects. That's not any different. Some of them are more robust than others. They all have automations. They all have third-party integrations. And so none of those things are unique. It's really like the approach of the product and the UI and the features that you get on the free level. And if you want to pay premium, that's fine. We're a small team, so we don't necessarily need that. We're just trying to manage our projects better and our tasks and these one-off things for enhancements or bugs for our systems that we built in-house. Okay. So with ClickUp, one thing that I thought was really neat is when you have a space and you have all these projects under a space. So like we have the product team, and say we have 40 projects ongoing with myself and the analyst Jimmy, who is phenomenal, by the way. If we have all these projects, it rolls it up to a project, or like the project, all those tasks are rolled up on that project. You could view how that project is performing. And then it rolls up I don't think it rolls up to the folder, if I recall correctly, but it does roll up to the space. So you can see how all your projects across your space are performing, and it rolls everything up. So you can see like your workload of who's working on what things are delayed, and how much are they delayed by, and potentially what the reasoning is, and kind of like root cause analysis of like how we're performing and how we're executing on our initiatives, which I think is great because these other products don't do that. I think Asana does that better, and that's one of the main reasons why I loved Asana. But I think Asana is overpriced, and their free option isn't as robust, nowhere near as robust as ClickUp. So for me, ClickUp is the winner, and I think UI wise, ClickUp is the best, has the best features for their free plan. It has the hierarchical approach, which is really only done by Asana very well. So really, if you want that hierarchical approach, which I think is really important for project management, when you're managing, if you're not like a project manager and you're more of like a program manager or a departmental manager, and you're managing many different areas, and you have to keep track of all these things, segmenting these projects into areas, into folders, and having them all roll up to your departmental view is very useful and important. Like if I wasn't going to use ClickUp, I would probably use Asana, because Asana allows you to do that. They do projects, and then I think projects, I don't know what they call it above that. And then after that, they call them portfolios. I think it's only projects and portfolios, but it's pretty decent. So it rolls everything up, and you could see your dashboard and your reporting at the portfolio level. Okay, so transitioning over to things that didn't make the cut. So I think the first one is too complex. Would be this note app, Notion, as like I briefly talked about it earlier. It's trying to be like the everything app. It's trying to do everything. Like legitimately, it is crazy the amount of stuff that they're trying to fit in the app. And I could pull it up. I made some stuff. I was playing around with it and using it as a template, like using some of the templates and stuff. Let me sign in, and then I'll share my screen and we can look at it together. It's just too much. Like it works on your desktop, but what I said earlier was, hey, like you want something that if you were given an idea on the fly or a suggestion on the fly, you want to just be able to unlock your phone, one click on the app, 2 clicks, and then within like 3 clicks, you want to be able to start typing your task or your note. With Notion, I mean, there's just so much stuff going on in it, and it just seems like it's a mess. Like I know that it has great collaboration features and is very powerful, but beyond that, I don't have a high level of interest in it. Let's see, I'm sharing. Okay, so I'm sharing this thing. Let me close this out on this side. Okay, so I'm sharing my weekly to-do list is one of the templates, and you click this and it makes a whole new list, which is, I guess, is nice. But that's all it is. Like it doesn't really have any powerful features on doing. It has, the ability to make rich text editing but it doesn't have anything like, okay, like let's trigger tasks by where you're at in the world or where you're at in your house. Not your house. That'd be crazy level of geofencing. But like having these tasks being triggered like where you're at, like by your location, is pretty cool. Like when you get home, if you get home from a trip or a work trip and you're going on that work trip and you are bad at texting your family that you're home, like myself, you could set a task for yourself. Okay, tell my family I'm home, type of your message, whatever. And then it would send you a notification like, hey, like tell your family you're home. When you're home, like when you get home, that task would get triggered after you got back from your trip. Like that kind of stuff you can't really do that. So this is this life wiki, and this kind of example where this is kind of the dashboard of all your stuff. And then so you can have a reading list, you can have all this stuff, and it's all linked out. And like this is a table, and it has the link and other stuff. But this is the issue is like, okay, on mobile, you're not going to be able to create all these side linked pages and fill out the status of it and like the rating, the author, all these different requirements. It seems good on the computer, but on your phone, the stuff doesn't work. Like all this stuff, all this table stuff, all this other stuff, it just isn't going to fly on that scale. And at a certain point, okay, is it worth having this huge table and this long list, or is it better just to use Google Docs or Google Sheets and do it that way? I don't know. I just don't know how much utility these things are offering me besides having them in these different sheets. Like this goal stuff, I think is pretty sweet. Sorry, I had a cough. Still getting, I'm still sick. This to-do thing is pretty sweet, but overall, man, this is way too complicated to just be like a notes app. Like they're just trying to do everything, but their to-do stuff isn't as good as Todoist or TickTick. Their notes are like all over the place. Like they're just like too much going on. Like just give me something simple that works and is a quick snap. Stop sharing. Okay, so that was my Todoist / TickTick / Notion comparison, where Todoist and Notion are really only good at tasking, but Notion tries to be a collaborator or a workflow manager, project management, task management, note taking, wiki creating, just overall like massive platform. You don't need all that complication in your life. Like life's complicated enough. And there's this other note taking app, Obsidian, which I think is probably the more promising of the two. It's not as complicated, but I think the learning curve to get started is pretty high, where you have to know Markdown. I know Markdown because I do a lot of programming, but Obsidian seemed like it's more catered to like PhD people that are writing like PhD papers and like people who are programming, but I don't know how mainstream it's ever going to get. It seems popular enough, like with 200,000 people in their Reddit, I think like 260 or 160, close to 200,000. But overall, I love the UI. I just felt like it might be a little too complicated to be able to just pick up and just snap. And I don't know how much value it's offering with the note taking part. I don't know. Lacking features and buggy, I would put Wrinkle in the area. So Wrinkle is that project management app where it just seemed when I was making tasks that I was typing the task name and it was kicking me out of the task title and putting me somewhere else. And then I had to keep clicking on the task title and going back and forth. And it, like every 3 words, it was kicking me out. And after that was happening like 4 times, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with this. Like I need something where I can easily make tasks for these projects for work. If I can't do that, then what's the point? So that's why Wrinkle is no more. I put my clothes to the dryer. They're no longer wrinkly. Okay, so price not justifiable. I would say Asana. Asana is more expensive than competitors in their same area, like same space. So it's more expensive than Monday. It's more expensive than Wrinkle. It's more expensive than ClickUp by quite a bit. I think like $8 more per month. And so it doesn't offer as many features, and it is well polished and it's a great UI. But if you're getting the less features and you're paying more money and you don't have like any large differences between the two, I think it's a difficult case to make that Asana is like fundamentally better or has that much more of an enticing offering, which isn't the case obviously because it's overpriced. Okay, So there's this other app called Samsama, and Samsama I mentioned earlier is an app that specializes in time blocking. So Todoist is an app that does tasking really well, and I talked about that. Like Todoist and TickTick do tasking very well. One thing that it doesn't do, and it's starting to build out those features, and same thing with TickTick, is time blocking within the app. So they recently released a calendar view where you can see your calendar of that day, or you can also look at your upcoming events and view your calendar. You can see like the upcoming week, and you can kind of plan out your week and time block your week, and those time blocks that you create are going to be populated onto your work calendar and your personal calendar and whoever you're sharing it with. But before, you really didn't have that option. Like that wasn't available. And that's pretty much a new feature, I would say, within the last 6 months for sure. That came out. And before, you could make these tasks, but you had no way of getting them onto your calendar. So Samsama was the intermediary between your calendar and your tasking platform that you use. And Samsama would combine your tasks, make them into events, add durations on them, and have advanced planning around the tasks that you have. But the price for it is pretty steep. They're saying $20 a month. So, and it was something I was looking at because I was like, okay, if I could save myself hours a week, not really save, but use my hours in my week much more efficiently, and that would potentially give me more free time or make me more productive and more valuable to my team, then $20 is not that much in my opinion. So, I'd be all in for time management at what, $25 a month, which if it saves me, say it makes me more productive for just low estimates, 10 hours a week, like my personal time and my work time, that's pretty low. Like maybe it's five and five. That's huge. 25 bucks a week is like chump change. Like that's something that people compare with these AI subscriptions where they're like, oh, it's $20 a month for the best model. And I just think that's steep and it's too much money. And then I asked them, okay, how many subscriptions do you think you have? And they're like, oh, well, I've got Netflix, I've got NFL sports package, I've got Peacock, I've got Hulu, and all sorts of subscriptions they have. And then I asked them, how many of those subscriptions save you time? And then they get silent. And they're like, none of them. And I was like, exactly. So how about you try to use some subscriptions that save you time? Like, just try it out and see how much time you save. And if you don't save any time, then get rid of it. But I think people, for some of these subscriptions, especially like this time management thing, like they would get caught up on the price. Okay, $20 a month is crazy for time blocking, but if you could save 10 hours a week, then like it's super valuable and could become integral to your workflow. So that's my approach, and so I'm willing to spend the money if it saves me time, but I am going to use Todoist's feature that they have, and it might not be as robust, but I think it gets the job done, and it saves me $20 a month, and it doesn't cost me that much time to use that feature. Okay, so those were everything that I discovered during my workflow remap, where I was very concerned with how things were going. I wasn't getting enough work done. It wasn't I wasn't getting enough work done. Let me rephrase that. I wasn't getting enough deep work time slots. So I wasn't getting enough time in the deep work sector or segment of my workflow. And so that was a concern because I wasn't doing enough coding and I wasn't getting those high value projects completed. I'm not saying the things that I'm working on are high value, but those things related to programming saved the whole team a lot of time. And many of the meetings I'm in are longer term picture, like 1 month away or 3 weeks away or 1 quarter away or 6 months down the line that I'm planning. And so the team won't see that for a while, but the coding thing, keep working on that. That saves everyone time and is high value for the group. Okay, yeah, that was my thought process and my productivity stack and how I go about my time management. I use different methodologies and techniques depending on the situation. As I said before, I use Eat the Frog for workouts. I use the Pomodoro Technique and Eat the Frog for tasks that are dragging. I gave an example about reporting issues. For long-term initiatives, I use day theming, which is used by founders and CEOs. And for deep work time slots, I use time blocking to allow myself some time to do some head down work. And my experience with deep work is I typically am doing programming. For resource allocation, I use the Eisenhower Matrix. And there you go. Like that's how I go about my time management. I feel like I use my time pretty efficiently, and I hope that I keep improving it, and maybe I can get some more time. I mean, I would love the idea of just maybe we can't really slow the Earth's rotation, but maybe we can speed up so many tasks that mentally we're spending half the time that we normally spend on things. And maybe we could just free up another 12 hours of our day. That'd be great, because I can't get more time, but I can only use my time more efficiently. So I hope that you like this episode this week. I am going to be discussing next week Gemini gyms, which are AI agents that now are released. So now I can use these AI agents to create my own gyms. And so we'll see. I don't know how full-fledged the features are going to be, but what they demoed, it looked pretty cool. I did some trial and error before this episode to give some snippets about it. And I overall think it's going to be pretty cool and promising. And I like the direction that Gemini is taking, or Google's taking with Gemini. And I kind of like their theming. Maybe their naming conventions are a little bit less confusing than before. And hopefully they keep this direction with different branding of the different segments of their LLMs or AI offerings. Because I know some of their other stuff was quite confusing. And they're keeping with the gym. I think they've got Gemify, or Gemini. One other one, I don't know. They've got like 5 different models, all named with G and I at the end. So it's hard to keep up sometimes with that. But yeah, I hope you liked the episode. And if you, it's hour 20. I hope that you liked the episode. And if you enjoy these episodes, please like and subscribe or follow wherever you're seeing this podcast at. It definitely increases my viewage with the algorithm. And so my viewership goes up, and it gives me an opportunity to help other people or entertain other people. And so that's my ask to you. And of course, wherever you are in this world, have a good day, have a good night, have a good afternoon. And I'll talk to you next week. Peace.